YouTube has continued to attack alternative media by demonetizing most of our videos. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit our Amazon store or our Patreon page. Links below. Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is the Mundane Matt channel, and this is going to be a long one, so let's strap in, because the Me Too movement, or the Time's Up movement, whichever one you are going by right now that's trying to get trending on Twitter, has set their sights on Stan Lee. And I'm not going to lie, the allegations are pretty damning. However, and this is where I find it to be the most interesting. No one is buying it. No one is buying it. So it says here that Marvel creator Stan Lee is accused of groping nurses and demanding oral sex in the shower at his $20 million Los Angeles home, but says he is a victim of a shakedown. Now, if you recall, just a couple weeks ago, I did talk about this. Stan Lee had $300,000 from his foundation, or from his personal account, his production account, taken, and it was meant to be for a loan to his Holding Hands charity, or whatever it was called. That was, he's a victim of fraud. Now we're seeing this. Now, I don't know if the two are connected. I don't know if the two are related. I just find it to be interesting that there is a shakedown in process. So it says here that comic book legend Stan Lee has been hit with several allegations of sexual assault and harassment by nurses caring for him at his Hollywood Hills home. The Marvel creator, 95, is alleged to have reportedly groped and harassed a string of young female nurses employed to care for him. He says to have asked for oral sex in the shower, walked around naked, and wanted to be pleasured in the bedroom. Now, there seems to be a kind of an ongoing theme here with these allegations. There's a lot of walking around naked, a lot of wangs hanging around. I just find that to be very odd. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know Stan Lee personally. I've met the guy once. I've seen him at multiple Comic-Cons. No one in the geek world doesn't love Stan Lee. He's been like this beacon of hope and shininess and fun. So to read these are kind of like, you can understand why people out there are kind of like, I don't know how true this is. Now, the nursing company, which employs the women and caters for celebrities and high-end clients, is now in a legal dispute with Lee. But as of yet, no police complaint has been made and no lawsuits have been filed. And this is where I start to kind of look at it with my eyebrow raised, like, come on. You cannot do this anymore. You cannot do this. Due process has to happen. Absolutely, positively has to happen. If there has been, look, if he's walking around as a nurse, and he's waving his 95-year-old speckled wang around, and he's like, hey, you wanna come over here and play with my web slinger? Then yeah, you could go to the police and sit there and say, yeah, he's repeated, it's getting bad. Like, I know he's not all there, he's like in his 90s and everything else, but he is legitimately asking for, to cover me with his webbing. And that is not going to be, that's not going to be good. But you would have a complaint, a valid complaint. And if there's been no complaints and no lawsuits filed, then I'm sorry, I have to call this some stuff into suspicion. As again, it's a trust but verify situation. I don't want to listen and believe. I don't like to listen and believe. I want to trust but verify. So if he has done this, horrible for him to have done. But you also have to take the necessary steps to make sure that there is a legal paper trail to make sure he doesn't hurt anybody else. And that's another part of this too. Now, a lawyer representing Lee told DailyMail that Lee categorically denies the false and despicable allegations and fully intends to clear his stellar good name and suggests the allegations could be part of a shakedown. Well, if there's been no complaint made and no lawsuit filed, then there's always that third. It's the you pay us this amount of money or we go to the cops sort of thing. Or now it's go to the authority or go to the newspaper. You don't have to go to the cops anymore. That's the whole point of Me Too. The whole point of Time's Up. You don't have to go to the police anymore. Just make the accusation. That's all you got to do. Lee, 95, is a former president and chairman of Marvel and co-created Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, Iron Man, Hulk, X-Men, and we all know who the hell he is. Here he is with some nurses. Here he is at a panel. Here he is doing some stuff. Okay, so Marvel is the highest grossing movie franchise in history, having raked in $23 billion at the box office, and Lee, as an executive producer, boasts a personal fortune of around $50 million. That seems kind of weird. He's got a personal fortune of $50 mil, but $23 billion? I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. I think he's owed some money. A source with knowledge of the situation said, Stan is an old man who has seemingly lost his way. He doesn't seem to care what people think of him. He's lost his filter. There's been a stream of young nurses coming to his house in West Hollywood, and he's been sexually harassing them. He finds it funny. He walks around naked and is vulgar towards the women. He asks them for oral sex in the shower and wants to be pleasured in his bedroom. He uses the word pussy and fuck in their presence. I've never heard Stan Lee swear. Not saying it doesn't happen. Just saying, never heard it. If Stan Lee were to all of a sudden drop the F-bomb, I'd be like, damn, you know? Because like you just don't expect it. It'd be like the Pope walking out and saying like, two in the pink, one in the stink. It just would be completely out of character. He's also very handsy and has groped some of the women. It's acceptable behavior, especially from an icon like Stan. The source added that the owner of the nursing company has openly said to people that Stan has sexually harassed every single nurse that has been to the house. That got back to Lee and sparked this whole thing. It appears that the owner, who has nursed Stan herself, eventually decided enough was enough. A rep for the nursing company confirmed that the female owner had received several complaints from nurses who had worked for Lee, and she had complained directly to Lee. Now, okay, so to be fair, let's look at this objectively. If this happened, okay, and the owner of the nursing company went to Lee and was like, "You've got to stop," that is one thing. However, given the current climate of things, you would figure someone who would have knowledge of this would go to Lee and be like, "I'm pulling out because you've done this far too much. You know, one is enough, never a victim again." But instead goes there to have a talk with him about it, which leads me to believe, I don't know. I just find it odd, right? If we're in a zero tolerance society now when it comes to these sort of accusations, her going there and essentially complain directly to him about it means that she doesn't care about her nurses and she just wants the money, right? Doesn't that kind of seem a little bit weird to anyone else at this point in time? Now, DailyMail is not naming the company, as to do so would identify the women. But if you're going to make the accusation, again, these kind of anonymous accusations destroying careers, like with TJ Miller and everything else, trying to destroy TJ Miller, not working at all. I'm sorry. You can't sit there and make these accusations and then hide behind anonymity. It becomes Hitchens' razor at this point. It really does. And I don't want to be that bad guy in this particular situation. I don't want anyone to be the victim of any crime, period. But if people out there are committing these crimes and people out there are committing these acts, and especially if there's someone as iconic, influential, and beloved as Stan Lee, then not going to the police and therefore putting other people in jeopardy is not the right thing to do. And if Stan Lee's coming back saying, well, this is part of a shakedown, I don't think even he would come out and say something like that unless there was a reason for him to make that statement. Why would you come out and say, they're trying to shake me down, unless someone had come to him and said, like, money, please. Money, please. That's what I'm thinking. I'm just saying. Now, the nurses whom paid clients $1,000 a day worked on shift rotation at the house and were available to him 24/7, 7 days a week. Their duties included taking his blood pressure, bringing him food and drink, and making sure he took his medication. The nursing company parted ways with Lee towards the end of last year. Now, I just want to say there was Kevin Smith had once talked about Stan Lee coming to his house with an assistant. And that assistant, like Stan Lee, had almost fallen down a flight of stairs because he's getting older, he's getting harder to walk around, and going and whatever. And the assistant caught Stan Lee right before he fell, and saved him. And Kevin Smith's like, "Oh man!" And the guy just goes, "That was the 4th time today." Okay, so showing that Lee, in terms of walking around and coordination, not the best. And this was a while ago, right? This was absolutely a while ago. And so again, looking at that, maybe he's not the coordination there, but if he has his assistant, then his assistant might be aware of this. If he's been saving his life so much, he would also make sure that the medications are being taken care of. He'd make sure that all of these things are being done. So there would be people in the employ of Lee, either current or past, that would have understandings of this. And that, of course, is where I find myself here, is asking the question, where is the proof? And that is something that a prosecutor would want to know. That is something that a defense would definitely want to see. And while that might make me come across as a bit of the bad guy, because people don't like it when you ask questions like this, I feel like I have to. And again, it sucks because I don't want to be that person specifically. If you have proof of these accusations, if you have proof of this situation, then by all means, present it. If not, then it comes across as being something more nefarious, because what other purpose would you have than to seek something? This is Hollywood. Everything revolves around what you can get from somebody else. It's the have-nots versus the haves, and there are way more have-nots than there are haves. So again, I don't want to be that person who's kind of a jerk about this, but I kind of feel like someone has to raise that question here. Now, Lee's attorney, Tom Lallis, sent a cease and desist letter to the owner of the nursing firm on December 20th. In the letter, as seen by DailyMail, Lallis accuses one or more individuals at the firm of having published to others defamatory claims that Lee has sexually harassed one or more nurses who has provided Lee services at the Lee home. In a statement to Daily Mail, Lallis said, Mr. Lee categorically denies these false and despicable allegations, and he fully intends to fight to protect his stellar good name and impeccable character. And again, in the public spotlight, Lee has both of those things in absolute spades. It says here, we're not aware of anyone filing a civil action or reporting to these issues to the police, which for any genuine claim would have been the more appropriate way for it to be handled. Yes. I'm sorry, all of you out there that like just baseless accusations on the internet. You want to be taken seriously, you got to go to the cops. I got to go to the cops. You got to go. Anyway, instead, Mr. Lee has received demands to pay money and threats that if he does not do so, the accuser will go to the media. Well, the accuser went to the media, but the media is not going to announce the names. So doesn't this not feel like just a wee bit of a shakedown, right? So the Daily Mail is like, well, we're not going to identify simply because we don't want to dox who they are. But he says, the lawyers, like, if they didn't get what they want, they're going to the freaking media, and then they went to the freaking media. So it's one of those things. Now, Mr. Lee will not be extorted or blackmailed. We will pay no money to anyone because he has done nothing wrong. And then, of course, they end up here with the photograph of Lee's widow, Joan, who died in July of last year. And of course, what they're trying to kind of say here now is that Stan Lee himself is a person who is old, decrepit, 95, lost his wife of 70 years, and all of a sudden doesn't care anymore, and he's walking around butt naked talking about dicks and pussies and fucking and shit, right? That's essentially what they're saying. That is the whole idea, the whole impetus of this article is to assume that this is what Stan Lee has done. And you know, while they're coming not right out and saying it, that, oh, his wife died back in July, it's been 6 months, he's kind of lost his mind. That's where things are at right now. And I don't know about you, but looking at these attacks on Stan Lee recently with the $300,000 going missing, and them looking at it being from an inside job, and this, it can be one or two things. And I will look at both options here. You've got the first option, which is that this is in fact true. That Lee maybe forgot he loaned he gave someone $300,000. Granted, if his fortune is worth $50 million at this point, $300,000 is literally a drop in a bucket. And then of course he's forgetful of that, and then he's lost his mind, and he's just been waving his speckled meatloaf around over the course of the past 6 months, and really alienating the young nurses that have come to his house to take care of him. But that being said, if this was the case, like I said, he's got aides, he's got assistants, he's got employees. These are people that know him intimately and personally, worked with him for years. There would be stories of this happening within the comic books industry for years. If none of those surface, then this is a situation that I believe is BS. And I kind of conflated my 2 points together there. It's either he did it or he didn't do it. That's where we're at. And the evidence right now suggests more towards the not than the did. Sorry. I want to, you know, I'm just saying, it feels like there's something rotten in Denmark here. But that being said, I just want to be abundantly clear that if this comes out to be true, if there's evidence presented, then yes, of course, I'll talk about it and I'll condemn Stan Lee. Those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Do you think Stan Lee is innocent? Do you think he is guilty? Do you think he's somewhere in between? Do you care? What are your thoughts? I do want to hear them, so be sure to write them down. If you haven't already, thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, check back often for more content from me. If you do want to support the channel, you can do so with PayPal, Patreon, Bitcoin, Amazon affiliate, or you just turn off that pesky ad block. And if you want to watch more videos, you can do so right now.